Hey everyone, I'm Joseph Mertz, the founder of Sterning Group, and welcome to our Higher Purpose podcast. Higher Purpose is all about value and practical takeaways for upskilling and personal and professional development. And our talk today is by Ben Nash. He's a financial advisor and the founder of Pivot Wealth. Ben's created a straight-to-the-point presentation around how you can get your money working for you and why it's something you really shouldn't put off. If you're joining us on iTunes, head to our website, sterning.com.au, and you'll be able to get a copy of the slides from the presentation on our blog. Enjoy!
Well done, everyone, for braving the rain. Clearly, there's a few empty seats here. I think this always happens this sort of weather, and people take the easy option, but props to you guys for coming along. As Joseph said, my name is Ben. I'm a financial advisor. My business, Pivot Wealth, we're a money management company, and we specialize in working with young professionals and helping them basically get their money sorted. So, I was connected with Emma actually online, and then she introduced me to Joseph, and we started chatting about some of the things that we're doing. And I know that these guys are committed to helping not only their staff, but the sort of broader sort of network as well. So Joseph sort of jumped at the opportunity to get me in and present to you. So great to be here with you guys. Tonight I'm talking about how to get your money sorted, basically, and what I want to do is take you through some of the key sort of principles that drive success with your money. Some of the three key areas that I've found that you absolutely need to get right to achieve any real level of success with your finances. And then we'll talk about some of the key mistakes that I see people make with their money so that you can get some insights on how to avoid them. So look, as we go through as well, obviously we got a pretty intimate group tonight, so please feel free, jump in, ask me questions. Sam's already promised to ask at least 10, so do that. And if everyone needs to top up their wine or whatever, I would strongly encourage that, because that just helps with more questions. So cool. So look, guys, firstly, don't rush out and do anything crazy off the back of this presentation. I was never here. This never happened. But this is, we're talking about important things here. So I'd encourage all of you to seek personalized advice before you make any big decisions. Cool. So firstly, unfortunately, a bit of a myth that I see with people is that a lot of people get advice and opinions from mates, family, friends, and generally the person that's giving you the advice or the information, they swear by whatever it is that they're telling you and why it's the absolute best thing to do, and why you should buy shares, or you shouldn't buy shares, or you should buy a property, or whatever. And people get caught up thinking that there's one sort of pathway that every person can follow to take them to success with their money. There's no, but really, there are no good choices. There are, like, what makes a choice good for you is based on you. So like where you're at now, what's important to you, how your situation's going to change over time. So yeah, there's no one real pathway, but there are some things that you can do to figure out what makes a good choice for you. So that's what I sort of, instead of me saying you should follow these three steps and you'll be a millionaire, what I want to tell you is how you can figure out how to make good decisions for you, and the key questions that you need to ask and answer to make sure that you get the results that you want when it comes to your money. Does that make sense? Yep. Cool. So look, firstly, like some of the common problems that we see. I know everyone's situation is different, but there are some really common challenges when it comes to your money. The three main ones that we see are information overload. It's like all the information is on Google these days. It's all just a few keystrokes away, but it's sort of like drinking from the fire hose. It's hard to know who to listen to. So many conflicting sort of messages and different points of view. So, and that causes a real problem. There's a lot of research that shows that the more information we have, the less likely we are to make a decision. And so that sort of is a barrier for people. The second is that people really struggle to find the balance between living the way that they want and making the financial progress that they want as well, that balance of getting ahead. And the third is that everyone is just super time poor. And beyond that, I've found that people, they really don't want to spend their the precious spare time that they do have sort of spinning their wheels when it comes to their money and not actually getting any results. So what I say is that these three problems, they lead most people to become what I call stuck. Now, it's stuck means not always stuck doing nothing. Sometimes it's just stuck doing this. I've got quite a wide range that I've got to do the eye contact with tonight, but that's all right. I'm getting there. So stuck not always doing nothing, but stuck doing the same thing that you've been doing in the past. And what that typically leads to is people missing opportunities to get better results from what they've got. So so basically, these are the three main areas that we've got here that I was sort of alluding to before, that I've found that you need to get right to be successful with money. And they're the three sort of areas that we're gonna cover off on tonight. We've got structure, strategy, and solutions. Now, the structure is how your money actually works. So how it works on a day-to-day basis, your money in, money out, and how you're actually managing it. So I don't like the word budget, but basically your budget and your banking. The second is your strategy. So how, is that for me? Yeah. Thanks. So the second step is your strategy. So that's, getting clear on what success looks like for you, what your goals and targets are, understanding the options that are available to you, and then breaking them down into a clear action plan. And then the third step, look, I was running out of S's by this time, but and obviously you can tell I'm a fan of alliteration, but I'm talking about the investments and the investment solutions, the product solutions, the things that you use to actually back up your strategy. So your structure is how to make it easy to save money, and how to be clear on what it is that you've got to work with. Second is the strategy is how to make your savings work harder for you. And the third is how to invest so that it doesn't all fall apart, so that you get results and get that consistent progress over time. And that leads you to the fifth S, which is success. So we're going to dive a little deeper into those three areas tonight. But I have found that, if any one of the three is missing, it's really difficult to get any consistent results over time, because if you're good at saving and you've got good investments, but you've got no strategy, you're missing opportunities to get more out of what you've got. If you've got good at saving and you've got a good strategy, but you've got bad investments, you end up losing money, you suffer setbacks and mistakes. And a good strategy and good solutions, but without the ability to save and manage your money, it means that you get leakage and your plan can sort of fall apart. So, yeah, does that make sense, guys? Yeah? Cool. So I'm going to run through each of the three areas and tell you about some of the key sort of issues and what you can do to sort of get them on track. So without a good structure in place for your money management, you end up stuck, and we see this a lot, stuck in this constant sort of juggle. You get paid, money comes in, you shuffle it around to different bank accounts, pay off the credit card, and then you get to the end of the month or the pay cycle, and it doesn't seem to be as much money left over as you were expecting. You end up ultimately not saving enough, not saving as much as you want to be saving, and I see this a lot, that people feel guilty about how much they're spending and how much they're saving. They don't know, am I spending enough? Am I spending too much? Sometimes I see people that are really good at saving and they feel bad when they spend because they don't know if it's going to stop them, that spending's going to stop them from getting to their goals, or they overspend and feel a bit guilty about that, which is probably not a bad thing, but this guilty spending is a problem, and it causes a lot of frustration for people. And the ultimate result is if you don't have a good structure in place, your progress is slow, because especially when you're young and you're in the process of building your money, it's how much you're saving and spending, and what is the main driver of the results that you get over time. So and this is reflected in the average savings rate, which is less than 5% in Australia, which basically it gets a bit scary from here. But for the average 30-year-old, the retirement income is set to be around 30% of average income, which works out to be about $25,000 in today's dollars terms. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for most of the people I talk to, that doesn't sound like a comfortable standard of living. And you might say I'm picking on 30-year-olds, but the older you are, the worse the results are for the average Australian. So like the younger guys are better than most other generations. So, but yeah, so look, if you get on top of your structure, everything can be really automated and easy. And I think that's super important. Everyone's time poor, as I mentioned before. You don't want to be spending heaps of time crunching numbers in spreadsheets, using apps and tracking all of everything and shuffling money around. It has to be easy or you won't stick to it. If something's too hard, it's too hard. You just don't do it. You end up, keeping more of your income, which is clearly the goal. And when you get it right, you can actually create guilt-free spending. So it's crystal clear for you, how much you've got to spend guilt-free, and know that everything else is working and on track. And the ultimate result is you start to get this real traction. You get this rapid progress with your finances as well. So to get a good structure in place, there are a few different steps. The first one is that you've got to be clear on what's going on a day-to-day basis, right? So what money's coming in, what money's going out, where's it going? Is that good? Yeah. Sorry, I'm picking on you because you're the closest. So you need to know, what you got to work with, where it's going, and what it is that you want to be spending and what's left over. Really important. Then you got to sort of look ahead as well and say, well, what have I got coming up? What's on the horizon? What's maybe I've got a big trip planned next year that I need some extra cash for. Maybe I'm planning on career change, through these awesome recruiters or something else. But maybe it's time out of the workforce. Another thing that I see as well, people starting families, these sorts of things, getting engaged, getting married, you need a lot of money for this stuff. So you've got to sort of plan for it as well. So you don't want to, if you just look at the day to day, you can be caught short with these bigger ticket things, right? So understand the year-on-year results. Then actually segregating your different types of spending. Now, I'm a big fan of running multiple bank accounts. It's like the digital version of the sort of the tin can type setup, but 7. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Sometimes not so great.
I had a client once, and she had about 15 different ones. It was like from petrol, clothes, like all these different ones. I thought it was a little bit excessive, but yeah, I got more than 7 bank accounts. Well, I think they're all linked together, so I don't see the point. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and so when we help people, we'll generally quarantine off the different types of expenses. So, your bills, what your bills are. They're predictable, they don't change too much. So you just need to make sure that they're getting paid, right? So we have a separate account for all of your fixed spending, and then you can automate your bills. You never have to think about your bills. It's a win, saves you time, stress, whatever. Just watch your Telstra bill because they charge you extra. But then we have a separate account for your day-to-day spending, the walking around sort of money, an account for your debt, a different account for your short-term savings, so the travel fund and the savings to spend, and that's separate to the savings, like your long-term savings and investments as well. Keep those 5 areas segregated, and then you can just automate your payments through the different portions. And that's actually I've jumped ahead, but automate all of the transfers, and basically all you have to do is look at your day-to-day account. You know exactly what you've got to spend. You're hitting your savings targets. You know that if you spend that, you can spend it guilt-free, and everything else is working. So this sort of stuff is powerful. We've got that structure that I just explained. We use that with all of our clients, and our average savings rates, we track all this pretty closely, but our average savings rate is like 35% of income. So yeah, it is. Yeah, well, it's more than 7 times the average. Then we've done the numbers on what that actually means for it. So for the average 30-year-old, by the time they're 60, that means having an extra $3.5 million if you invest the money, right? So it doesn't happen straight away, but using this structure, it sets the foundations for your money. And once you've got it in place, then as you get the pay rises, and I know we're talking about that for this session, when you get pay rises, bonuses, extra income coming through, you actually capture that and you use it for something that you really value that you're going to get something out of instead of just absorbing it and it not getting put to good use. If anyone wants, I'm happy to share the slides later if anyone wants them as well. Save you writing them all down. Just see Yang and she'll get you details.
And the podcast will be there too.
And yes, yeah, we'll put a link in the podcast thing as well. Oh yeah, we're recording. I wondered what this thing was actually. So it's super powerful having a good structure in place. It saves you a ton of time. You can basically automate most of your money management. You get this guilt-free spending, and you end up getting real results over time. Does anyone have any questions about structure side of things, banking?
Do you recommend any particular bank accounts?
Well, I'm reluctant to say it, but we use AMP. ING are good as well, yeah, because when you have a whole bunch of different bank accounts, you don't want to be paying fees on all of the accounts.
Yeah.
So ING are generally fee-free. Yeah, I don't worry about the interest too much because I think that the most important thing is the structure itself, because if you've got a great structure that makes it easy for you to save, your tendency to overspend is worth much more than the 1%. You get 2.5% interest, which you pay tax on at 40% plus or whatever. So it's more about, people get really caught up in trying to save, get the maximum interest, but really I'd say to my clients, don't worry about it. The AMP accounts that we use, they pay like 1.5% interest, and for our guys, I say it's more important to have the system sort of working. So yeah, but also a good question that one of the things that I found is super powerful is separating your everyday money from all of your other money. So we always use 2 banks minimum. So you got your guilt-free spending, that's your walking around money. So I do my banking with CBA, my day-to-day, that's the only account that I look in. Then I got everything else with AMP, it just does its thing. The only thing I do is just look in at my travel fund, see when I can go on my next holiday, yep.
Can I ask, probably a hard question, but what's sort of perhaps a reasonable or an average for that everyday sort of spend for an average person like us?
Yeah, look, I do everything weekly. So I'm not a fan of monthly because it's really easy to spend money, as everyone knows. So if you've got $2,000 in your account, you could spend it in a weekend. But if you've got 500 and you know that there's 500 next week and the week after and the week after, it gets a bit easier with the portioning. So big fan of weekly. Look, our clients range between, I've got one client, she's an extreme saver, but she spends $150 a week, and that's on all of her, that includes all food and shopping as well. Yeah, she's, well, yeah, she doesn't take her wallet to work. That's her trick for saving money, because she knows that if she doesn't take her wallet to work, that she can't spend any money. But she just turned 30 and she's saved about 250K and her income is about $75,000. So, but look, I wouldn't suggest that. Necessarily, that's not right for most people. But that would be about as low as, well, that's definitely as low as it goes, and then all the way up to $1,000 a week, depending on income. It's easy to spend, but it just depends. I think. One of the important parts is, and this process, is that you need to prioritize what's most important. So your fixed costs are pretty straightforward, right? There's not too much flexibility. You should look at your fixed costs and say, well, which things do I value? Have things crept in that really don't bring me that much actual value or happiness? If that's the case, cut them out. Otherwise, your fixed costs are fixed. Your debt is probably pretty straightforward as well. You got your travel budget or your short-term savings or whatever, and then you're spending, and then the savings can balance it out. You just need, it's like a circular process to lay out your ideal spending plan, like how much you'd ideally like to spend in all these different areas. Then look at how much you're saving. What you'll probably find is you're going backwards. Then you have to go back. That's what most of our clients do. The first time they do it, the budget says, they put in all the things they want to do. The budget says it's in the red, right? It was the same for me when I did it. The first time I did the budget, I'm like, yeah, I'll go on this trip and then I'll do this and do that. And then, oh no, it's not possible, right? So then you've got to sort of circle back and say, well, okay, what are the most important things? I find that a lot of people end up spending, because it's so easy to spend unconsciously. Like these days, I was having this conversation with Joseph before that, you know, companies make it really easy for you to spend your money with them. So like Uber and Uber Eats and like all these conveniences and stuff, and you're just tapping buttons on your iPhone, not Joseph's phone, or he's got actual buttons, but they don't really do anything. So he's just gone analog, but it does have a pretty good camera. But yeah, like you end up spending all this money on things that don't actually bring you that much value and happiness. You know, there's only three things. There's a guy called Michael Norton. Would strongly encourage you to look him up. He's a professor out of Harvard. All of his studies are on the spending behavior that drives happiness, and he's found there's only three things that you can spend money on that make you happy. The first is when you buy time. So you spend money for things that create time in your life and give you more time for the things that you want. The second is experiences. So travel, you know, like, I don't know, the experiences, right? You get that. And then the third is giving. So giving back to people because it makes you happy for a longer period of time. Michael Norton, yeah, like the Edward Norton. Yeah, so it's what happens is that you end up spending $75 a week on coffee, and then you go, oh, I don't have enough, like as much money as I want in my travel budget, right? So it's like that circular process. Look at what you're saving. Are you happy with it? Circle back. What are the most important things? Choose the things that you prioritize, that give you that you think are the most valuable. Good money management is only good prioritization. That's the only thing it is. They call it financial advice. All I do is help people prioritize with their money, but do it from a really informed perspective, so that they know that the numbers are solid and they're not missing anything as well. So if the thing you value most is the coffee, cool, prioritize that. If it's travel, cool, you know, or if it's saving, or maybe it's probably a combination. But yeah, yep. Oh right, okay. Very good. Any other questions about saving, banking?
So I remember when I first started getting into this at the first chat, financial advisor said, pay yourself first. And
Yes.
It's kind of like that mentality of what your self actually is, or what you
Yeah.
prioritization. So
Yep.
I was like, what does that even mean? I thought I get paid, but what do you mean?
Yeah.
No, you're spending, you're not paying yourself first. So it's that whole, what you just mentioned then.
Yep.
Prioritize what you prioritize. So if you can figure out what that is and where you go, that equals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so about like the question just for the podcast, because Joseph's given me the look. But yeah, about paying yourself first. And that, I think if you set up the right structure and you automate everything, you're sending the money to the right priorities. You're doing that first. But I think like what they're sort of saying is, don't try and save, like you do a budget and say, I can save $1,000 a month or whatever the number is. And then you try and say, I'm going to wait until the end of the month. And when the $1,000 is just sitting there in my bank account waiting for me to save it, I'm going to move it over, because that typically doesn't happen because you've spent the money, right? We've all been there. Yeah. Uh-huh. Cool. Yep. Okay. So the second thing I want to go through is strategy. And look, strategy is really the centerpiece, I think, of your money management. You know, the strategy is what gives you confidence. It's what makes sure that you're maximizing all the opportunities that are available to you, making the smartest decisions, clear on the results that you're going to get over time, and making it actually happen. You need the structure in place so that you know what you've got to put into the strategy, and so that once you've set the strategy, that the strategy actually works. But the strategy is super important, and it's something that a lot of people don't see. So they don't take the time to do. So the first thing, without a good strategy in place, I see this a lot, that people, they've got money stuff everywhere, not actual money, but like accounts here, investments maybe, super funds, like all different bits and pieces, and everything's just sort of, maybe they're good decisions or good options, but it's not sort of working together. You end up missing opportunities because you're not clear on what's possible, you're not clear on what you need to do to get the most out of what you've got, and then you don't have confidence. And I think confidence is so important when it comes to money. Have that clarity. And without a good strategy, I find that people have always got that thought in the back of their mind that there's something they're missing, something more that they should be doing. And this is, it seems crazy to me, but I see this all the time, that people they just do stuff with money, but they're not really clear on what the thing that they're doing is going to get them to. Like, people don't take the time to look ahead and say, if I keep doing this thing that I'm doing right now, this is sort of around about where I'm going to be in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. Like, people just don't do that for some reason, which, and it goes back to what we're talking about, prioritizing, that if you know where you're going to get to, then you can make sure you're happy with that. If you're not, then you need to change something, right? And then, so anyway, that's my soapbox thing. Look ahead, guys. Have a goal, yeah. Have it, but it's not just have a goal. It's understand where the numbers are taking you. Like, understand what you're doing right now, what sort of financial position that's going to put you in. I've got a model I'll share with you around that after. So yeah, look, when you get your strategy right, everything's sort of streamlined, everything's working together. You've got this cohesive sort of strategy in place. You can squeeze more out of what you've got. There's a lot of different sort of facets to your money management these days. Things around tax. We pay a ton of tax in Australia. Opportunities around that. Things that you can be doing to drive better results with what you've already got. And then the third is you get that real confidence in what you're doing, because you know that your strategy is in place. You know that it's solid. You know that it's taken care of. And then the ultimate result is that you've got this really clear sort of path that you're happy with, that's going to get you to a place that you want to be in, and you know exactly what you need to do to get there, which I think this is one of the key things that everybody should have with their money, to drive that confidence, peace of mind, and money is the leading cause of stress in Australia. More than 50% of people, 25 to 45, stressed about money. Not necessarily financial stress like you can't pay your bills, but stress due to money. So clarity and that confidence is so powerful. So putting into action. Look, this is sort of similar to the discussion we were having about the savings numbers as well. But when you want to put a strategy in place, the first thing that you got to do is focus on what's important to you. What does success look like? Like, if we're having this conversation again in 3 years' time, and for you to be blown away with what's happening, where are you at? What's changed? Then you got to actually understand what's possible. So it's great to say, like, you want all of these things, but then you got to be realistic as well, right? And a big part of that is understanding your numbers. So knowing what the numbers are. You want to get to the $2 million. Well, I suppose $2 million gets you a 2-bedroom townhouse in Sydney. Maybe dream bigger, but the dream home these days is a little harder to get to. But you've got to see what's realistically possible based on where you're at and what you can do. Understand the options. So see the different pathways to get there. What if you invest? What if you buy property? What if you don't buy property? What if you do something else? What if you tweak your savings? What does that mean? What do the numbers look like? And then choose a thing that you're the most comfortable with, like that gives you that balance that I spoke about before, the balance between the financial progress that you want and the peace of mind as well. You've got to be comfortable with your strategy. You don't want to be confident that you're not facing too much risk in what you're doing, that you're that you understand it, and that you've got that confidence, that comfort level as well. And then you just want to break it down to what's the action plan? What are the things that I need to do? How do I know if this thing is working or not? And that's where it sort of winds back to the structure as well, to keep everything on track. Questions about strategy stuff generally? Sam?
It's kind of like I think working deep into this I guess what we were talking about before, about other people's advice, and then it's just like, shares, property, and then a lot of news out there. Yeah, it's difficult living in Sydney, like one of the most expensive cities in the world, right?
Yeah.
Paying home even that you want to live in and raise a family, and it's like,
yeah.
How can you actually get there? And,
yeah.
And then if you're going to be working in Sydney, you want to get like $1 million mortgage, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
What are the options in this?
Move to Katoomba.
But what you mentioned when you were sitting down before, does that tie into this as well? You know how you said starting with, we were talking about how philosophy on starting from the nearest absolute.
Oh yeah, so knowing making sure that you've got this. So we were talking before about how to make sure that you're getting that, like, able to look at numbers but do it with confidence to know that it's right. So a big part of that is you've got to make sure that your numbers are rock solid, and that's what I was talking about, where I'm saying the strategy is like the centerpiece, but you need to make sure that your structure is good to get there, so that you're really clear on your, basically, like I said, I don't like the word budget, but basically your budget, your short and medium term spending plan. If you're like rock solid on those numbers, then you can start to explore the options, because it's so hard, like especially with property, especially in Sydney. I'm seeing a lot of that with the people that we're working with, but there's also a lot of myths out there. Like you talk about getting advice off other people. Rent is dead money. Oh my God, if I hear that statement again, I'll lose it, because rent sort of is, if you pay rent and then you go and blow all the rest of your cash, then rent is dead money. But if you choose to pay rent instead of paying an enormous mortgage, and then you do something really smart with the money that you've saved by, like, the difference between the two, then that can really give you that traction over time as well. So it's about looking at what that looks like. I think it's like a
mindset.
Yeah.
Australia's been sold that dream for a long time, so that's a
Yeah.
marketing dream, isn't it?
Well, I think it's like a generational thing as well, that I find that, like,
job for life or the company for life. It's the same
Yeah.
generation.
yeah,
Your folks will look at you,
yeah, don't listen to them.
How come you're nearly 40, you don't have a house?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's a big point, okay?
yeah, yeah,
But rent in
It's not gonna be
Sydney
open to your maybe.
too. So rent is
Yeah.
part of that lifestyle as well, right? That's
Yeah.
what I say, it's like, I can't afford a mortgage.
yeah. But you might be able to, and I'm like, but you might be able to pay rent, save some extra money, and go buy an investment property somewhere else.
Yeah.
See the other.
If I want to own a house, I'll do that. Yeah. That's
Yeah, and then that's where, like, you can people. The other thing that makes it difficult for people is that they think that they need to buy the house that they want to live in. Now, like, I can't see an apartment from here, but like a studio here would be 600 grand. Yeah, at least, and that's like 30 squares. And who wants to live in a Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You touched on this before when you spoke about tax as well. What's sort of your idea with salary sacrificing now in your 30s to sort of move towards you don't have to work until you're 85?
Yes. Yeah. So you can, salary sacrificing is good because it saves you. So the question is, like, should you salary sacrifice? So yes, it's good because you save tax.
Maybe to what extent? So, like, obviously you've got money constraints within your budget.
Yeah.
And so should you be looking to maximise that addition to superannuation now, when you don't have a mortgage?
So for the average Australian, if you salary sacrifice about $40 a day, so that's an after-tax cost for the people on the average tax rate based on like $75,000 income, that's the average Aussie, then you will increase your retirement income from roughly 26% of the average income to more than 52 or 54%. It's more than doubles, right? It's more than an extra like $1 million a year in today's dollars terms, $23 a day after tax, the cost. No, it's about $40 before. So you tell your employer, put in $40 a day. It costs you about $23 a day in your pay packet going down. And it's an extra $1 million in today's dollars to so $50,000 a year onto your income in retirement. I just did this for what's that?
Is that based
Yeah.
on 5 working days or 7 weekdays?
That's 7 days. Yeah. So it's just a day. It's a daily. Yeah, it's a daily rate.
And that's
Correct.
based on from 30.
That's from age 30. Yeah. So it's like as I said, it's less than the average for the average Aussie will retire on. It's like 26% of income. But yeah, that contributing an extra. Testing my memory now because I wrote this. I've been writing a book and it's finished now. But did all the numbers for that stuff, so I'm just rattling it off. But I do remember the $23 a day. But yeah, that's from age 30. So if you accelerate it more, because the compounding, we were talking about this before, and I've got an example to show you. But compounding interest, it grows exponentially, right, Sam?
Well, and it's funny, like, I compare it with parents when doing something like skateboarding, but that's exactly what happens. You're only really going to see the returns of your investment later on down the track. It's still see returns, but to the Einstein called compound interest, the eighth one in the world. So sorry.
Correct. No. I don't use it. It's too corny.
But it's so true. And when I saw if you show an example of this, it actually changed my whole mindset in a second. Including the of what was possible with what you just mentioned then about salary sacrifice, because basically I'm not an expert,
but yeah, it's all at the back end. It's all, you see the most growth at the end, and I do have a good example to show.
Surely you'd recommend doing it pre-tax rather than post-tax.
Of course, yeah. I'm saying that you tell the employer to put in 40. And then it costs you 23 after tax, like in your after tax pay packet, But look, so it's good to get that consistent progress over time. But the other thing is you got to balance it against your personal goals as well. That's the other thing. Like putting money into super is great, but it's trapped in super effectively, until you're 60 under the current rules if they don't change them. So you got to find that balance between saving. You might have other goals, buying property, that sort of stuff as well.
The big is, I don't know if you only pay 15% tax, right, on those dollars. So if you can't afford to pay it,
correct.
It's come out of your pre-tax dollars. But
yeah.
You pay tax on it, but it's much less than, every dollar over 80 grand is like 37.5%, right? So
yeah.
Plus
Medicare.
You're saving 17.5%. So that's either going to the government or it's going to you. So
exactly.
If you can afford it,
yeah. It's just that balance, and that's sort of like where the strategy piece comes in as well. That you want to, you need to look at it and say, well, okay, well, I might have these other goals. Can I do them and still afford my $23 a day? Does that work? Because then, and then it's just priorities as well. All right. So, this is actually the process. So so you can see it in action. And I was showing Joseph this earlier, but this is the process that we use. But anyone can use this to plan with their money. So the first is around focusing on what's important to you, what success looks like. Second is understanding all of your inputs, making sure they're rock solid. So that's looking at the day-to-day stuff. What's your savings? What investments have you got? What's a super fund? What's going on there? And then the goal setting. So what are the things that you want to explore? Look at. In between 2 and 3, we look at like the numbers. So what do these scenarios look like that you want to explore? Number 3 is explore those scenarios and choose the one that you're most comfortable with. Put it together into an action plan. Number 4, set it up and automate as much as possible so that you've got that track to run on. Then make sure that you're executing it over time, that it's working and you get on track. Yeah. Cool. So the third of those 3 key areas that we look at is your investment solutions, investment and product solutions that back up your strategy. Because when you're not good on your solutions, you have this real fear around investing. I see this so much that it's the fear of the unknown, super common as well. Like fear is healthy because it stops you from doing stupid things. So people end up sitting on the sidelines because they don't know, they're scared, they don't understand it, so they do nothing. Spend a lot of time as well when people do invest, and especially they're investing in different investments, they're constantly looking like, what do I invest in? Is what I've invested right? What do I do next? As well. And then I see this, like, you're chatting to mates at a dinner party and they tell you about this great investment idea that, what were we talking about, Rams home loans before? And Bitcoin is a typical example of this, a few people avoiding eye contact on that one. Yeah. Got a long way to come back. Yeah. So you see, you get distracted, you get off track, you end up doing silly things. And the other thing I see a lot is that people are you try to shoot the lights out with every investment. We were having this conversation before as well, that it's natural that you just want more, and people, like, you compare what you've got with I might use Bitcoin, but like a Facebook or a Google where they've got this crazy growth, and then you think that that's what you need. So that ultimately leads to costly action and costly inaction. So you don't act when you should, and you act when you probably shouldn't. But if you get a good solutions in place, you get that real confidence to take action. Everything can be really simple and automated, so you don't have to use heaps of your time or energy to manage things. And when you got a good solutions in place, you can maintain that real focus so that you're avoiding the distractions, you're clearing exactly what you're doing, and when you don't get when someone tells you that you should buy this mythical like internet money, that you can avoid doing that. And then so the ultimate result of that is that you take action, but it's smart action. So acting when you should, and avoiding inaction when you should be moving forward. So the first thing that you need to do to get on top of your investments is to actually understand investments, how it works. Like, what are the different types? Like, what are the risks? Where does the actual risk come from, right? If you're not invested before, I work with a lot of people that don't have a ton of experience with investing in markets and the different ways to invest. Choose your investment strategy, and what I'm talking about here is really investing actively versus passively. I don't know if basically a passive investment is an investment that tracks the actual market. So like, you've watched the news at night and they say the ASX has gone up by 1%. That's the market has gone up by 1%. There are funds that just track they passively track the market. We use a lot of these sorts of investments with clients, because one thing that that the market always does what the market always does, right? The market goes up, sometimes it goes down. Over the long term, it goes up, right? The only way that the market can lose is if every company in the market goes bust, right? So the Australian share market, funds that track the Australian share market could go to zero if every single company in Australia went bust at the same time. If that happens, we got bigger problems than your investment portfolio declining in value, right? So that's got a passive investment, or index funds is another name for it as well. We're heavy on index investing, with a couple of exceptions around like ethical investments and different things like that. So that's passive. The alternative is active investing, and that's where you're actively trying to basically do better than the market. And a lot of people, this is where you've got some Gordon Gekko type character in a Ferrari. He's trying to sort of read the future in tea leaves and figuring out which companies are going to shoot the lights out, or do the best over time. Now, the research shows that over the medium to long term, that these sorts of investment funds, they typically fail to outperform the market itself, and part of that is because you've got to pay all the extra expenses that are involved with running those funds. So that choosing between whether you want to follow an active investment approach or a passive investment approach is a key question I think you need to ask yourself. And it's also one of the things that I talk about that you should understand when you're trying to build your knowledge around investing.
Can I just ask another question there?
Of course.
Based on that, what do you think is in active investing, what do you think is a sustainable rate? Like, is it 6%, is it 9% to be chasing around an active fund?
Yes. So the question is, what's the average investment to chase?
What's a more sustainable growth that you want to pitch at? It's not shooting for a company that's going to shoot the lights out.
Well,
you can have the money there when you go to.
Yep. So the market average return is like 8.7% over the last sort of 20 or so years. So it depends on where you're at in the cycle, but that's the market. Now, so if you need an active fund to do better than that. But I've got an interesting example to show you after this. I think it's after this that shows the growth rate on that over time.
And how do you feel about I forget the acronym, but it's the funds that diversify and they spread over ETFs.
ETFs, ETFs are exchange traded funds. So they're so you can have active ETFs, exchange traded funds, or passive ETFs as well. They're fine. We tend to use managed funds over direct shares or ETFs, mainly because most of our clients are investing regularly, and when you're doing that, you avoid the costs of the brokerage for ETF, because an ETF is like a share, so you buy it on like a ComSec or something. So yeah, they're okay though. There's nothing wrong with them apart from they can be a little bit more expensive purely because of the brokerage, the setup cost as well. Yeah, oh yeah, so the third thing you need to do is actually just get started, right? Because I see a lot of people that just sit on the sidelines for ages, just delay. So get started and then just be consistent. You can start small and just have that consistency over time. Just keep doing following the strategy that you've set for yourself. So, oh yeah, this is my example, right? So basically I'm going to show you a slide in a second with a lot of numbers on it, right? But don't freak out. It's basically, it shows that starting with the power of investing, starting with $0 and then investing $10 a day, every day, 7 days a week, for whoever asked that question before. So 7 days, $70 a week, $10 a day, investing in the share market average. So, and this is like a fund that tracks the share market, the Australian share market I've used. So basically first 10 years, so you're investing $10 a day, $3,650 a year. Haven't accounted for leap years here. I've just realised that actually. But let's say there's no leap years. We've got $36,500 over 10 years. So that's $3,650 a year, 10 years, $36,500. But then you're getting the investment plus a little bit of growth, and you see that. Can everyone see this? Okay. Yeah. So and then the extra growth that you've got on your 36,000 is 57. It's grown to a total of 57,000, right? So the growth isn't 57. You've got the 36 that you put in plus, another 20 odd thousand dollars from that growth. Then I've got, the next 10 years, the next 10 years, so 20 years total, where you've got now 2 lots of 36,500, so 73,000, but you've got a bit of acceleration in that growth. So it's now, the total is now worth $195,000. Then you got 30 years, again, you're only putting in another 36,500. Is everyone with me with this? Yeah. So another 36,000 over the years 20 to 30, so 109,000, but you're starting to get that real acceleration. You've got $500,000. And then if you can keep it going for 40 years, 146,000 in total, but it's grown to 1.3 million, right? So it's almost 10 times. So this is where, and you see that at the start it's slow, but then after the second 10 years, you've almost sort of tripled your investment. After the third group of 10 years, we're like 5 times, and we're almost 10x on the last 10 years, and that shows that power of money momentum. Now I've got an alternative strategy here. The numbers are the same, but what it shows you is that instead of getting started today and investing your $10 a day and getting that return over time, is that you sit on your hands for 10 years, procrastinate, and do nothing. So the first 10 years you invest nothing. Then the next 10 years, then you get started. You same $10 a day, 36,500, and you see the difference in the returns at the back end. You can compare them at every point, right? The numbers are the same. So after the first 10 years of actually getting started, you're like $150,000 behind if you would have got started sooner. The next 10 years, you're like 2.5 times behind, and then you're $500,000 compared to 1.3 million. Huge difference in the end outcomes, right? Does that make sense? So this is investing in the market average, and this is the thing that people try and chase. You talk about chasing returns in active funds. Why bother? If you can get this with $10 a day, why do you need more? You don't need Bitcoin. You don't need to chase shooting the lights out. I'm talking about $10 a day here, right? Joseph bought me a coffee down the street the other day. I think it was $5.50 or something. That's less than two cups of coffee. Anyone can find $10 a day. You could have been a millionaire. Yeah.
So what's a good, I think there was a question about the ETF and then investment chart fund. What's a good investment chart fund? Is that what you call it?
Exchange traded fund. So it's basically an ETF is a managed fund that's traded on the stock exchange. They just parcel it together into a share.
What was the
They're an index fund. So index is like a category. So you can get like an Australian index fund or a global index. Yeah. Yeah, diversified ones as well. So there are a lot of good ones. There are a lot of BlackRock is the biggest fund manager in the world, and then Vanguard is the second biggest fund manager. So they can do it, but you can also do it through like, you know, what used to be called Acons, where they've crazily changed their name to Raise. So you can start with $0, and they invest in like these index type funds as well.
They're actually, I really like them. I like the little roundups.
Yeah.
So I set up just for kind of fun with it.
Yeah.
It was actually for my daughter.
Yeah.
I set that up just over probably about a year ago.
Yep.
And all I did was literally just with my credit cards and
Yeah.
accounts and stuff like that. Just link them to this. Well, it was April there.
Yeah.
But it was literally if you spend $5.95 on a coffee,
Yeah.
just add the extra 5 cents up.
Yep.
And then until it gets to like $5 or something, it pushes it into your account. So you never notice it.
Mm.
You can set it so that if you've got a $10 transaction, it's attached to the dollar amount.
Yeah. Yep.
You just don't even think about it.
Mm.
That's like $3.5 grand in a year.
Yeah.
Went into that.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
through incidental spending that, I didn't even think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they promote that thing.
ING as well with their accounts.
Who?
ING.
Oh yeah.
Every payment you make it rounds up to the next dollar and puts that into a separate account.
Okay. Yeah, it's you don't notice it. I think though that with Raise or Acons, the good thing is that you can actually invest like $5 a day or $10 a day, like this example is, and you hardly notice it. Like if you're getting money in your account out of your account each day, it's just like normal sort of spending. So, yeah. So as I say, $10 a day. If you put $20 a day, the results are double. You know, if you can sort of go push hard and do $100 a day. I know that's a lot of money, right? That's $700 a week, but that would get you $2 million in 20 years, $5 million in 30 years. Like, it builds serious momentum. So, yeah, you can see the numbers. You don't have to invest crazy to make crazy money. It's just 10 times, so 13 million. So it's 10 because it's $10 a day. So if you did $100 a day, it's just add a zero to the end of all of those numbers. Yeah. Yeah. So it would be like $500,000 in 10 years. Beg your pardon?
What fund do you use?
We use Vanguard. Yeah. So, but it just depends on which one that they use. But they've got one where it invests in all different Australia and international and stuff as well, like a growth one, but all indices, like all global ones as well. But they're
Just the website.
no. So Vanguard, if you go, you need to use like an investment account to use that. So yeah, because if you go direct to Vanguard, it's like $500,000 minimum investment. So but you can use like what's called an investment platform, and you can just invest. Like my clients can start with 10 grand and they just invest regularly over time. You could. No. You go. Yeah, exchange traded funds through CommSec. Yeah, so there are a bunch of options. The most important thing with your investments is not the investments themselves, although you need your investments to be good, right? That's I'm assuming that's a given. But the important thing is having the right strategy. So knowing how much you should invest, when you should invest, and making sure that it's fitting with the other things that you want to do. So the most important thing in your investments is your timeline, because you only ever lose money on your investments when you sell. So you need to make sure that you put yourself in a position where you're never forced to sell an investment at a time that you don't want to. Because if you can do that, you'll always win.
What did you say? You only ever lose money on what?
You can only ever lose money on a good investment when you sell it. Yeah. So because a good investment over the right timeline will eventually go up. It's definitely going to go down. This goes down. Like in 2007, like the Australian share market went down by 50%. Yeah. But if you were forced to sell at that time, you would have lost 50%. But if you would have you can wait longer, then you make your money back and make more as well. So timeline all important. Cool. So any other questions on investments before we move on? Just
The market at the moment, with property kind of peaking where it is, it's like in terms of boom and bust, that kind of stuff. Where do you see that affecting investments?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird time with the investment market. So the question was what the outlook on the market. Thanks to our podcast listeners here as well. So yeah, I think it's a weird time in markets at the moment because the property market's high. So the RBA are concerned about that, but they're also people are under pressure. Unemployment's high, so they're scared to lift interest rates too fast. Spending is low, so they shouldn't need to lift interest rates because inflation is low. Then you've got like Europe's recovering, but their interest rates are low. America as well. So it's like it's not like a normally in the economic cycle you go, well we're on the peak and rates are low and we're spending too much money, so they're going to put the rates up, then we'll spend less money, then it's going to go down. But at the moment it's like conflicting all the different things, so it's hard to say. I'd say there's probably a little bit of risk, but there's also a lot of opportunity as well. Yeah, I think that the property market, I personally, and I'm no property guru, but I can't see the property market going anywhere, especially in Sydney, for the next sort of 3 years or so. Just staying fairly flat. I can't see it ticking up. I see a lot of people and they're like stressed out trying to like push to buy property, but I don't think that will happen. I think that maybe there's a bit of risk there as well, especially more in the outer suburbs with really high mortgage rates and then interest rates potentially going up, and this change from interest only loans to principal and interest. It's getting hard. Like I'm not a mortgage broker, but a lot of my clients look to property factors into their strategy at some point, and I work with a mortgage broker really closely. He looks after pretty much all of my clients, and we look at affordability, and these guys can't afford property, and I'm thinking like if they can't afford property, I don't know who can afford. Like how are these people out of the city? How are they with huge mortgages how are they doing it? So I'm not sure. Cool. All right. Well, I'll push on in the interest of time. The next section I'm going to talk about is the common mistakes that I see, and talk about how you can avoid them as well. The first one, this is probably one of the biggest ones, is money's something that it is really important, but it's never really urgent until you end up in crisis. And if you end up in crisis, it's it's almost impossible to get out, or it's impossible to get to the point that you would have been if you hadn't get there. So super common, people they get caught up in the day-to-day and the emails and the different bits and pieces, and money gets pushed on the back burner. They don't get the results that they could. The second is not educating yourself, and that causes people to sort of be afraid of taking action, to do the wrong thing, to make bad decisions as well. So it's important to build your education, and part of that I think is you've got to be focused in your knowledge. I think it's really hard clearly I'm a little biased because I'm a financial advisor, but I think it's really difficult for most people to do it on their own. Part of that is because there's so much information out there that I found that one of the most important things when you're setting up a strategy is to be really focused with your knowledge. So understand the things that you need to know now and the things that are coming up, because otherwise if you try to learn everything at once, like I've studied formally for years, and then on the job for a period of time, and it's like you can't know everything. If someone that, especially without a financial background, you're trying to learn everything at once, ends up being difficult and nothing sort of sinks in. So focused knowledge, really important. Not looking ahead. I won't go into this too much because we were talking about it before, but what I mean is not looking at how your situation's going to change over time. Unconscious spending we also spoke about, so spending without thinking and without thinking about the real value that you're getting out of your spending too. I see that as a major problem. Waiting for the right time to get on top of your money. I see this in people like, oh, I know I need to do something, like get my money sorted out, but I'm just going to wait for that, when I get that pay rise, or then this thing happens, or I build my savings to this point, or something, but they end up doing nothing. It goes on for years, and then you just wasted opportunity. Going it alone, I spoke about before. I think it's money management's so complex. I think it's really difficult for most people to do it on their own. And the third one, and I sort of touched on this as well, but getting the wrong advice. So this is the wrong advice from friends, family, people that don't know, that don't understand, the complexities in your situation. Also, the wrong professional advice as well. I see this a lot with, there's a lot of examples of poor advice. If anyone follows the news, they're probably seeing a few of them. I was chatting to Paul about this before as well. but like, you know, wrong advice around property, wrong advice around, you know, from a financial advisor as well. Like I was talking to these clients the other day that young couple, they were, you know, pretty good savers. They had decent incomes, young family as well. They saw this financial advice company and they went through this whole process, and the process sounded really good. They had like 8 meetings or something. They did all this education stuff. And then at the end of the process, they got given their financial plan, and it was like, buy an off the plan property in Brisbane, and then put 100 grand of your savings into your super so you could buy another off the plan property in Brisbane. But it was from that, like, buy it with their mate who then were getting this like $30,000 commission on each of the properties. And thankfully they didn't act on the plan, but these guys paid good money. Like they paid, like, I think it was like $8,000 or something they paid for their financial plan. And then they got to the end and they had to come and then see me because they were scared. They're like, something's wrong. I'm like, yeah, definitely. Definitely something's wrong, because like the Brisbane property market's saturated, so many apartments and stuff already, that why would you do?
Yeah, 200,000 you can buy an off the plan apartment that was.
Yeah. Well, it's an overlap. Like I don't mind Brisbane as a place to buy, but why not buy a 4-bedroom house on like a 1,000 square meter block that you can get 5 kilometers from the city for still like 600,000, instead of buying a $600,000 unit next to the God knows how many other $600,000 units
But they've dropped.
that are there. Yeah, well, they've dropped. They're hard to rent as well in Brisbane because there's so many ones. The old apartments are really hard to rent. That's what my client, my extreme saver client, she had a unit there, got out at the right time, because people can't rent those places. Everyone that lives there they're negotiating reductions in their rent because there's so much stock on the market. So that's an example of broken advice, and I see it a lot with like insurances as well, like income insurance. So what, you know, most insurance, like 98% of financial advisors that do insurance advice in Australia, they work on like a commission basis. They say to you, oh, you don't pay us a fee because we get paid a commission on the product that you buy. Now, and they say that the commission is there anyway, which it is, but like we work with clients on a fee only basis. We charge you know, like $1,500 to do insurance advice as a one-off fee. But when we do that, we strip out the commission, so it's a third cheaper for the person every year forever. So they normally make their money back in the first year, and then every year afterwards, they're better off. So I think it's important if you're going. I think most people need to get advice at some point. But if you're going to get it, make sure you're getting it from the right source, that conflict is managed, that you know, that they've got a solid process, that they're going to give you the right outcomes, and that you're paying enough to get looked after. If someone tells you they're going to build your financial plan for $500, you should be concerned, because there's no way that how long are they going to spend with you? You know, they're not going to take you through the things that you need to do. So if you're going to get advice, then make sure that you're asking those questions, like how do these things work? How do they get paid? Do it before you get too far down the process. Now, like these guys that I was telling the story about with the properties, they could have avoided that if they would have said, they could have avoided that if they did a bit of research, because the first thing that came up when I Googled it was like an ASIC warning to the company about misleading advertising about self-managed super funds and off-the-plan properties. But they've got property divisions. They could have asked the question how they get paid at the start. What are the different sources? And then they would have said, oh well, actually we've got all these arms and they're all sort of aligned. Also look at like who owns the company or how they're licensed as well. It's a big thing. We're seeing all these problems with the Royal Commission. You know, most of those come from the companies that are licensed by the big 4 banks or AMP, which is more than 75% of advisors. So ask them that question at the front end, who's the ultimate owner? So you make sure that at least you're aware. Like it might be a good advisor, but you should be aware of the potential for conflict so that you can understand how they might impact your advice, and keep that in mind when you're making your decisions as well. Cool. So any questions about mistakes generally as well? No?
I've got a question. The outside at the about timing. So is it true that it's like if you go back, so it's not like when you make a decision, I want to invest. Some people try to time the market, right? Like,
Yes.
Wait for a crash.
Uh-huh.
So like you a city property house as well, you get like you got an article like it's going to crash, or
Yeah.
should you be waiting for that moment, or should you be you know, waiting for that more, or are you just wasting your time, energy, and stress?
Yes.
When you should be better, what's the difference? I guess that's active and passive investing, right?
Yeah, so the question is, should you wait for the market to crash or try and time the market? And yeah, I suppose that is a form of active investing if you're there. But